Happy Sunday evening, everyone. Pierre, what was the name of the Sunday evening thing you used to do?
Oh man, Sunday Night Live.
Yes, welcome to Sunday
Yeah,
Night Live. We're on Sunday Night
Sunday
Live.
Night Live.
If y'all are watching, come on and just hop on in. I'm going to go ahead and share this to another page that I have and to share this to my group. So you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing this. And for those of you who are watching it, do the same. Share this. You're going to get some great value out of this. We're going to have a great conversation. And I think that this is something that a lot of us this is something a lot of us have been talking about and thinking about. Now, some people may be watching the football game. I understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But Pierre, you are not. Why are you not watching the game right now?
Listen, man. First of all, probably the biggest reason my team not playing.
No, and that's the reason. In fact, I know that's the reason.
But even if they were playing, we made a commitment to be here
Yes.
at 7 p.m. So
no, I think it's the reason that the Lions won last night.
No,
Wait,
man.
no, they don't play. They have a bye.
We got a bye week. We're chilling. We're chilling.
Yeah. You guys are. This has been a good year for Detroit, man. So and even your Pistons are coming up this year. So.
All the teams in Detroit right now that are Red Wings, Pistons, Lions, everybody's winning. Tigers are in the off season, but everybody's winning. Everything is up, so we're good. We're good right now.
Listen, if y'all are coming on, welcome to our discussion. Pierre and I are going to be having a discussion talking about debunking some of the myths of paid speaking. And this is just the first one that we're doing today. So if you're on, hop in the comments, discuss with us. We want to talk about it with you. And we're going to call this one Sunday Night Live just because we got.
Yeah, let's do that. It's all right.
Yeah. I'm putting it here. All right, I'm sharing it to a couple places. And those of you who are coming on, do me a favor, share it to a couple places if you can as well. It'll help people to see it. So let's do that. Let's get this conversation going. All right. So for purposes of introduction, because this is being shared on both my platform and on Pierre's platform. So some of you might know me because you're following me, and some of you know Pierre because you're following him. So I'll just do a simple introduction. I'm Kymone Hines. My background is business and pastoral ministry as sort of my career. Worked as a pastor for 15 years and worked while doing that in various roles, right? I worked as a youth director, so I put on events, created resources. I worked as a church planter, starting a new congregation, and also working at a regular, just established church. And so varied experiences. About 6 years ago, made the decision, and I felt like I was led by God to step out into the world of entrepreneurship. Yeah. Pierre and I, we go way back, but I'll allow him to introduce himself, and then we'll kind of talk about what we're doing together this evening and the next couple of days.
Pierre Quinn. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Part of my background is similar to Kymone's. Spent, I would say, probably 7 to 8 years in full-time pastoral ministry. Before that, I was in the higher education space. I was teaching communication courses, business communication, interpersonal communication, intro to public speaking, and human communication. Spent some time in fundraising and development as well. So all those worlds really coalesced for me in 2019. Made the transition from full-time pastoral ministry to full-time professional speaking. And ever since I made that transition, and even while I was still pastoring, because my professional speaking career and my pastoral career literally started at the same time. And we'll talk a little bit more about that story in a future conversation. But they started at the same time. And ever since I started, I had colleagues asking me, hey, how do I get the opportunity to speak outside of my church, outside of ministry events, at companies and organizations like you're doing? So, it's been a few years of people picking my brain, and Kymone and I said, let's put some boundaries around this conversation and have it in a way that impacts significantly more people. So this is the first of 3 nights, and I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And so, as you mentioned, right, people have been picking your brain about how do I get into being a professional speaker? And when we use the word professional, right, this means that you are being paid enough to speak, that you're able to take care of yourself, your family, your different needs, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. For those of us in the church world, speaking, doing workshops, whether you're a pastor or a leader in ministry, those you get what we call honorariums. But I don't know anyone who can live off of an honorarium. I don't know. Maybe you do, right?
I mean, I'm going to say a couple of controversial things, or maybe
Okay.
not controversial, just, pulling back the curtain a bit from not just the speaking world, but also from the pastoral ministry world, and how we navigate this space, and how in our particular denominational context, and maybe if you don't have the same background and faith system that we do, you can still resonate with it. This, man, listen, I know some people who, to make ends meet, they have to be what we call road preachers.
True.
And survive. They try to survive as best they can off of honorariums.
Agreed.
And I always say, man, what if there was a better way?
Yeah.
And I think because it falls under the not guys, but it falls under the inside the bucket of preaching. We don't necessarily frown upon it. In some ways we commend it, unless it's like your pastor and he's always going, or she's always going. It's a different conversation. But we find our colleagues are trying to make ends meet as speakers limited to the church space. And we want to challenge that myth that if your gift or calling or training is in speaking, we want to challenge. One of the myths we want to challenge is that you always have to do it for free and it always has to be in a church. So
absolutely.
That's not the one we're covering tonight.
That's right. That's right. And let's get to tonight's myth. And by the way, if you're hopping on, if you're watching, we need you to do us two favors. One, type in the chat where you are watching this, right? Always helps to know what the reach of this is. Secondly, tag someone, share this with someone, share to your page, because this conversation, again, it's for people who have a ministry, right? So it's your pastors. It's also that person who's leading the youth, that person who is creating content and doing workshops and doing all of this stuff. And we want to find out, how do we not move that message out? So Pierre, again, professional speaking, you've been doing it now for, what you said, 2017?
And I'm sharing it now as we're doing it as well. Honestly, man, not honestly. I don't have to frame it with honesty. Honestly, I started my business in 2017.
Okay.
I filled out the paperwork. I launched the Cardell Group in 2017. 2019 is when I went full time into it, and I really started my first check. Man, I don't know if we should save this for next week or save this for the other stuff we got coming. But my first check came in 2013. That was the first time I was paid to give a presentation, to give a talk that was not in a church setting. And that was 2013. That was the spring of 2013. So I've been at this for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So 2013, and as you said it, while you were leading a congregation, you still had the bandwidth, you had the freedom to be able to do this, and now you've transitioned to full-time. But let's talk about myth number one that I feel holds a lot of people back from pursuing this, right? And maybe it goes with what you were saying earlier. Myth number one is, I'm not famous enough, right? Because when we think about speakers, there are celebrities, right? There's a celebrity, and I've heard that, let's use a name, Magic Johnson. He commands over $100,000 for a speech, right? So your Barack Obamas, right? Like 6 figures for a particular speech. Easy. And then we start coming down, but we think you have to be famous in order to be paid any sort of money that's, allowed you to live, or like create some kind of real value to be a speaker. Talk to us about that, Pierre. And I looked on your Instagram, so you got 100,000 Instagram followers and about 1 million on TikTok right now.
I was like, who are you talking about? What? I have bots. I paid for some. No, I think, man, it's like 500, maybe 500 people on. I don't know. I think the only one I really keep track of most consistently is LinkedIn, and I've less than 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, less than 400 people subscribe to my YouTube channel. Instagram, maybe a couple of hundred. I don't know. I don't really track metrics like that. Now my team will get on me for not knowing my metrics, but I don't really track metrics like that. This first piece, man, to push back against this myth, the framing of this comes from Michael Port. Michael Port wrote a book called Referable Speaker. And he said there are three reasons why people book professional speakers. Reason number one, you've done something great. And great is like you've climbed Mount Everest, you're an astronaut, you've been to outer space, you're a world-class athlete. That's our Magic Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You were a president, or you were a central political figure. That's a Barack Obama. So just the status alone of having done something great gets you invitations to be a speaker. Now, that doesn't mean you're a good speaker. It just gets you invitations based on the great things that you've done.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's category number one. People book speakers based on the great thing that they've done. Category number two, people book speakers based on where they've done things.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be it's great. It's just where you've done it. And I think if you go on LinkedIn, a lot of people have on their LinkedIn profile ex-Google, ex-Meta, ex-McKinsey, ex-Bain and Company, whatever X out there. And the reason why they're doing that is they're showing you that I worked for a pretty big deal company.
Okay.
Or I was a part of a startup. I scaled a company from 5 people and sold it at 100 billion, whatever. That verification that you've done some things at notable places gets you an invitation. So if I know, Doc, that you worked for Google and you're ex-Google, oh man, if I'm doing something around internet, around data, around social media, I might want to tap you. If you led project, and you don't even have to do the main thing that the company is known for. So if I worked in talent development for Google, I might not have done anything technical. I might have just been on the people side.
Yeah.
But because I have the Google credential, people want to tap me for speaking. So number one, what you've done. Number two, where you've been. Here's the third.
Yeah, this is the one. Oh, come on. This is the one
This
I'm
is
leaving.
the
And by the way,
reason, right?
this is a couple people are on here saying some stuff in the comments. Gamal says, I
Yeah, I
have
see a
4
couple
daughters
people.
who follow me around asking me for money. That's the extent of my following.
Listen, my 2 asking me for money too. And what makes it even crazy, Gamal, is like I talk to my daughters openly about my speaking business. So my daughters know how much I make. And because of that, they're asking for money. Here's reason number 3. Why people book speakers. So not just because of, doing something great, not just because of where you've been. 3 is you have insight that intersects with their need.
Ooh. Somebody type that in the, come on, Gamal, help us out. And somebody else. Which reason number 3? Say that again. Say it.
You have something worth saying, and you're good at articulating the relationship between your talent, gift, skill, ability, and experience and the need the organization has. And when they find people that meet that intersection of what you have to talk about in their need and can live in that space, that's why people book speakers. Okay. How do I know this?
Tell me,
because I'm not famous.
Right.
Because I haven't worked for Google. I haven't worked for McKinsey. I haven't worked for Meta. I haven't worked for a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
But consistently, year over year, I'm booked to speak in organizations across the country and even around the world. So I know it's true.
Wow. So help us understand that, because, right, so reason number 3 is something worth saying that they need to hear. Gamal says it that way.
Yeah.
Ansem says insights that intersect with their need. All right. So let me, and folks, if y'all are on, ask your questions, right? Like that's why Pierre is here. Like
about 15 minutes left.
Yeah. That's right. We only have 15 minutes left, and then we're back tomorrow. But now, I'm gonna push back because again, we're doing this for people, and a lot of them, right? Even though we're saying ministry, I think we've understood already. It doesn't mean pastor only. But when I look at my expertise, how do I determine? Like, I don't see how what I have intersect for that, right? Because look, I got it right here. I got Bible. That's what I got. Like, how does my expertise intersect with their need? Help us understand that.
Man, you give me warm, man. You get me excited about this conversation. So one of the people that I looked at a lot just early on is John Maxwell. And here's why I looked at John Maxwell. If you're familiar with John Maxwell
Mhm.
Maxwell is one of the foremost speakers, not just on leadership, but on building systems around his expertise. Just about everybody you know, or a lot of people you know, are John Maxwell
certified
speakers
Yeah.
and trainers, and now they have a DISC certification and all of that. Well, if you know anything about John Maxwell started off as a pastor. Like that's his foundational training and development. John Maxwell has 3 degrees in religion. 3 degrees: a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate. Doctorate of ministry. They are all ministry degrees. And Maxwell wrote in a way, he was writing in a way that captured the mind of business owners. So his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the business world gravitated toward it. And he said, this was just a collection of my sermons. And a lot of it is chapter and verse. If you read the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, got Bible characters in it. And he said he realized the business world was gravitating so heavily toward his materials that he began to speak to the business world. Their need was leadership. His insight on leading his church and the lessons he gathered from the Bible, he turned those into leadership lessons. Now, not every John Maxwell book has chapter and verse, but the principles are still there. So what's their need? Training, development on how to be better leaders. What is his insight and perspective? How to lead teams and leadership lessons from ancient texts, from the Bible. And as he leaned more into that, he saw a resonance. He'll tell you even today, he says, my aim is Jesus. Leadership is just my hook. My aim is Jesus. Leadership is just my hook. And he's worked with leaders around the world talking about the principles, many of which that he found in the Bible. He tells this really famous story. He's giving a talk, and at the end of the talk, somebody asked him, man, I really want to know where you got your information. And he said, no, you don't. And the guy was just really pestering him. I really want to know where you got your information. Where'd you get your insight from? And he said, stay to the end, I'll tell you. And at the end of the presentation, he said, yeah, I got all my information from the Bible. And the guy's still like dumbfounded. He couldn't believe it. And that's why it's important for us to recognize that packaging, presentation, framing matters.
Yeah.
And how you position the message for certain audiences really makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world. So, people say all my stuff I got from the Bible. I only know Bible. How can I talk about this in different ways? And we do it all the time. Especially if you're a ministry leader, at some point you probably have given a children's story. Now, I unless something is wrong with you, you probably didn't stand up there for 5 minutes and preach to the children. If you did, something might be wrong. We could talk about that offline.
Ansem did it. I saw Ansem do it. I'm just messing with you, Ansem. I see you in the comments.
You pulled an object lesson. People bring like pictures and rocks and stuffed animals and all of these things because they're communicating. They want the kids to get the message, but they know at that level, at that interest, at that need, a kid that's 5 or 6 years old may not listen to a sermon. But if they take the principles that they're going to express sermonically, even in a couple of moments later, they take those principles, if they wrap them in a story, if they wrap them in a song, if they wrap them in a catchy phrase, if you have the kids repeat after you, if you do an activity, the kids will gravitate to the story, and you've given them the core message without necessarily preaching to them, but the message still got through. And a lot of that we can find a resonance as ministry leaders as we're packaging the messages that we know people need to hear.
That's good. Packaging, that's good, Ansem. By the way, I'm sorry, Ansem, for telling your business. I did see you.
He's telling my business. I'm telling my own business.
Kids, man. I saw you preach to them kids. Anyway, Pierre, one of the things I'm going to come to your question because I think it's a great question. And Gamal, you made a great observation. 2 things. Y'all share this, right? You got somebody, whether they're a pastor, they're a ministry leader, someone who has some expertise. and they need to find a way to get it out there. Do me a favor and just share it. Do them a favor and share it. And I want to also just highlight, and I'll share this a little bit more. Pierre and I are doing something coming up where we are helping ministry leaders and pastors to move their ministry into the marketplace through a speaking challenge. And I'll share more about that in a little bit. But let me grab Anselm's question, right? So look out for that. Please make sure you look out for that. Here's Anselm's question. I know people who have great knowledge, phenomenal expertise, but who might also struggle to keep my attention when sharing those with me. How do they overcome that? So we're talking about moving your message out into the marketplace, talking about some of the stuff you've done, Pierre.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not famous enough, but also I'm struggling with holding attention. How do you overcome that?
Yeah. So I'm parsing the question a little bit. So he knows people who have great knowledge, phenomenal expertise, but who might also struggle to keep your attention when sharing those with me. So are you talking, Anselm, are you talking about you as the speaker or as you as the hearer? And this is very important. The reason why I'm looking to make that nuanced distinction is because for some people who have great knowledge, phenomenal expertise, but struggle to keep your attention as the listener, you might not be their audience.
Ooh.
Their voice, even their perspective, their energy might not be assigned to you. So I know people who are phenomenal. They have great knowledge and tons of experience in the field of leadership development, learning development, emotional intelligence, all the spaces and places where I hang out, where I teach, where I engage people. But I wouldn't listen to them. I mean, I might read their books or a podcast, listen to a podcast snippet or a post, but they don't capture me. So that's one. They may not be your particular audience. If you're talking about, and I see this come up in the comments, I'm talking about people who don't have great communication skills. Now, I taught public speaking for over a decade to freshman college students. And I will tell you the number one thing you can do. And I know Gamal is, I don't know, Gamal, if you're teaching communication courses as well, let me know in the comments. The number one people need to do to improve their communication skills.
Say it.
Practice.
Somebody type that in the comments. Type that in the comments. That's the word. Right? Yeah.
The number two thing, record yourself so that you can watch it and that you can go back and practice. And we assume, oh, some people are just natural. Okay, yes. Some people have a natural charisma. Some people have a natural humor. Some people have a natural attraction. And I've seen people with natural humor, natural attraction, natural charisma, bomb speaking engagements because they did not practice. There's a flow, there's a cadence, there's a consistency. There's both an art and science. There's a pedagogy to it. And if you want to improve, you got to practice. Like anything else, you have to practice it. And in fact, a lot of us in the ministry context, and I think I mentioned this when we were doing the Monetize Your Ministry Summit. And I said this in the church space, many times, regardless of denominational construct, in the church space, well, most churches in America are less than 99 people. In the church space, we will give you a pass if we feel like your heart is in the right place. Oh, you got a good heart. You can't really sing. You can't really preach. You can't really organize. You can't really teach, but you have a good heart. So we're going to consistently give you a chance. And sometimes that builds up a perspective over time that you don't have to put any effort into it because you got a good heart. Yeah. Marketplace is different.
Yeah.
Marketplace is different. I tell people in the marketplace, the sign that you've been impactful as a speaker in the marketplace is not a round of applause.
What is it?
It's an invitation.
Yeah.
To speak at that event again or to speak at someone else's event.
I love it.
One of the main one of the main signs that you have been effective at sharing your message, at living that intersection between the audience or the organization's needs and your insight is not a round of applause. Because some in the marketplace will give you that just because you're done. It is the invitation to do it again.
Just that's right. Invitation is better than round of applause. Ansem says money. And trying to catch now it's coming, right? Gamal says, looking at Maxwell's example, it sounds like it's possible to speak and write my way into expertise, produce content that presents me as an expert in that field. Listen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Gamal says, I just need an expertise to talk about. Right. And I feel like this is a good segue, Pierre.
Yeah.
Because it's so, knowing I know your story, Gamal, but I know there's so much more nuances to people's story that I think people would love to understand. How do I find that area of need that intersects with my expertise? And I think, Pierre, there's three things about you that I think make you someone I want to hear. First is you pastored and you worked in the ministry space. So you understand the church, right?
Yeah.
You understand the church. Secondly, you said something, and you almost said it as by the way, for 10 years, you worked as a communication professor. So you understand how to communicate, not just how to share in one context, but to share in the principles of communication. But number three, and I'm gonna kind of push you a little bit.
Yeah.
You speak and tell people, like, just, I don't know, any kind of number so people understand what the marketplace sees in terms of your value as a speaker. Any number you feel comfortable.
Okay. You want numbers. Okay. So I was on a project. in 2024 that consistently paid me
Everybody's waiting.
It was like, yo, you gotta say what you said. What you said. Yeah, I was on a project last year that consistently paid me around $20,000 for 3 days of presentations.
All right. So with that said,
multiple times throughout the year.
That means that invitation was greater than a round of applause. With that said, Pierre is doing a 3-day challenge to help those of us who want to speak. And again, this is for those who, hey, I want to stay doing my ministry job, but also want to add a stream of income. It's for those who may not just be pastors. You might be someone, you're a counselor, you're a therapist, you're a teacher, an educator, and you want to now find how your expertise intersects with a need in the marketplace. This challenge is for you. It's January the 27th to the 29th. You get 3 days of coaching, 3 days of training, the ability to pick Pierre's brain. Some of y'all been doing it already. And it's only $47. Now, it's only $47 until Wednesday, right? That's the deadline for that early bird. So if I were you, I would click on that link, and somebody do me a favor and type the link in the chat right now. speakingchallenge.eventbrite.com. 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 Grab your spot because there are limited spots. But Pierre, what you share with us today, that first myth, I think it freed somebody. I don't have to I think here's the other side of that, right? I don't have to have a crazy life experience in order to be able to make a living as a speaker. Meaning like, I went through this and this. And again, for those who went through that, I'm not knocking you. But you're telling me I have expertise and it's something I'm sharing that intersects with a need. Yeah. Thank you, Gamal. Do me a favor, type it again without that space that it just put in there for you, because I want to throw it up on the screen and people can click it right there from your chat. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Pierre. I just talked a lot there.
No, it's good, man. I think we assume because we see the labels. You know, you see the New York Times best-selling books. You see the people I'm speaking to. We've been to events where people are headlining and doing all those things. You got to understand that the professional speaking and training world is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are tens of thousands of events a day being held across the country, much less around the world. And that means that there's more than enough space for everybody who's on live, everybody who's watching a replay of this to take action.
Yeah.
And when you are showing up in spaces, I'm telling you, I've been in some spaces where I'm in rooms quite often with MBAs and PhDs.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often with MBAs and PhDs. I do not have a PhD. I do not have an MBA. I have not done advanced doctoral research. I haven't done any of those things. And that doesn't matter. What matters is being intentional about who you are, about what you know, about what you've experienced, and crafting those things to meet the need of your particular audience. And I think that's what gets us about the famous thing. And partially because of our ministry background, we feel this sense of we're compelled to tell our personal narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And our personal narrative is not the thing that's needed in every situation.
Yeah, that's good.
Your personal narrative is not always. When I walk into some of the work that I do, I don't talk about my master's in religion. I don't talk about my master's in communication. I don't even talk about teaching business communication for almost 10 years. I don't talk about all those things. We're talking about emotional intelligence or high performing teams. And with that, okay, I know both the research and working with teams, I'm pulling those insights. And I think we have to get over ourselves sometimes, that bringing attention to yourself might not always meet the need of the audience that you're looking to connect with.
This is good.
So it calls for you to be strategic.
This is good.
I'm not saying your story is not important. It is important, but every stage, every opportunity, every client does not need the in-depth perspective of your story in order for you to make a difference and in order for you to be paid well for what you share.
All right, I'm gonna stop you here because it's time. We're gonna be back tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
I gotta go run someone to the airport, and we're gonna deal with myth number 2. So this evening we talked about the first myth, which was simply I'm not famous enough, and we debunked that. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about another one. I'm not gonna share it right now.
Yeah, don't tell them.
But you need to come hear it. 7:00 Eastern. We're only gonna be on for 30 minutes tomorrow, and register for the challenge. It's January 27th to 29th. The early bird deadline is this Wednesday. So grab it. If I were you, I would grab it now. I wouldn't be one of those people, oh, I'll wait till Wednesday. It's $47. And you're hearing the numbers, right? 47. And we're going to help you learn how to make your first 5K speaking gig in this challenge. You get a chance to pick Pierre's brain, man. Come on now. Don't mess around. Before Pierre, because it goes up to 97 after that. But after this, something tells me Pierre going to start charging a little bit more for people to pick his brain. I don't know.
Listen. And let me tell you why this is important. I know we're about to get off of this. The number of years I invested in training and development and coaching, the number of times I just bumped my head and I wish I had somebody to tell me, but I also know I'm a human being, and part of human nature, quite often we take things for granted that we don't pay for, that we don't invest in, that we don't sacrifice anything. We take things for granted. I'm speaking from personal experience. So typically when you invest, you want an ROI. Some of y'all got that gym membership from Planet Fitness for $29 or however much, and you said, I'm at least going once.
Yes.
Well, same principle applies here. We want you to, for some of us, even throughout this challenge we do, you're going to take one action, maybe just one action. You might do one thing we suggest you do, and it could have an exponential impact on your journey as a professional speaker going forward. So we want to challenge you to join the challenge, and don't worry, we're going to make it good.
Challenge you to join the challenge. Miguel Serrant, listen, man, that's what I'm talking about. Somebody who taking action. That's awesome. And if you're registered, let us know in the comments. I got to run Pierre. See you back here tomorrow, everyone. 7 p.m. Let's do it.